I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Walsh, would you lead us in the flag salute? Sunshine Law Statement. All the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been met for this meeting of the Board of Education of the Borough of Oradell. Notice of this meeting was filed with the Record and Town News, and all persons requesting such notice. Mr. Darien, would you read the mission statement?
The Oradell Public School District is dedicated to the ongoing pursuit of educational excellence through comprehensive, innovative curriculum and instruction. The district is committed to providing opportunities for social, emotional, and academic discovery to foster curiosity, courage, and character. Our goal is to prepare our students to become lifelong learners who are self-directed, resilient, productive, responsible citizens.
Thank you. Roll call.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta. Here. Mrs. Nigan will not be here. Mrs. Downey. Here. Mr. Griffin will not be here. Mrs. Norian will not be here. Mrs. Walker. Here. Mr. Walsh. Here. Mr. Darien.
Here.
Mrs. Nichols.
Here. Open to the public for agenda items only. Not seeing any, we'll move to the superintendent's report.
Well, I know you would be much more excited to hear about our NJSLA scores. We did receive our access scores. As a reminder, access testing is provided to our multilingual learners, and it happens every February and March, which is why we get those test scores earlier, and it is one of the defining characteristics of whether or not a ELL or multilingual learner exits the ESL program. So you will hear me use the term multilingual learner, where in the past we have used the term English language learner. It is for a student who has the opportunity to receive instruction in English in addition to taking their other classes. The access instrument, as I said, was administered in February and March, and there are 4 components of that assessment: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it gets a little confusing then, because what they then do is they combine 2 of those subsets to make 1 category. So we're going to see that in a few pages. So the access test is given all over the nation, and it is graded on a 1 in entering level for a multilingual learner to a 6, which is reaching. We look for our students to be a 4.5, which is the exiting number for a multilingual learner. Each of those subcategories that I spoke about before, listening, speaking, there is someone who sits and assesses what the students have recorded into the computer, what the students have answered, using rubrics in each of the categories. So what's always hard with our English language learners or our multilingual learners is we don't have a very large population. So I'm not legally allowed to share data if the grouping is lower than 10. So that's why I've had to put first and second grade together, which I don't really like, because first and second grade are very different learners, and I like to see them separately. So I've looked at them, but I can't share them with you that way, because we only had 9 first graders and 5 second graders. So you will see their average overall proficiency level there. And again, that goal is always a 4.5. Now you do see that those scores are going up over time, which is what we would want to see, that our students are developing more proficiency with each grade. The one thing that did stand out is I did think our kindergarten scores were a little bit lower than I have seen in the past. So that is something that we're really going to be watching for, to see. Very often, sometimes a student who is identified as a multilingual learner, later there will be some additional learning difficulties that we want to make sure we're not attributing to English language learning, and that we're looking at the child in multiple ways. So these are those sub-test results for each of those groups: kindergarten, 1st to 2nd, and 3rd through 5th grade. And there were no 6th graders by 6th grade. All of our students had exited the English as a second language program. So you'll see on the bottom what I was speaking about when we look at oral language. It's 50% listening and 50% writing. Literacy is 50% reading and 50% writing, and comprehension is 70% reading and 30% listening. overall, one of the things we did notice is you'll remember that when I shared the performance report, there were 2 scores specifically that lowered our overall school performance report. One was of the results of our English language learners test, the access testing. Last year was the first year that ever happened. That's actually usually a high point of our score reports. These scores were more aligned with what we had seen in the past. I'm not sure what to attribute last year to. Was it a residual COVID effect? Were those students maybe home speaking a native language and having less English? But these are much more aligned. The other area that we will be working on this year as well was attendance, which was lower. So based on these results, 9 students immediately exited the English as a second language program. There are a few other students that may end up exiting in the fall because we will do some additional testing in the fall. If they were a 4.5 and this additional testing is done, we may decide to exit them from the program and just keep an eye on them. Many of these students, 16 of them to be exact, did attend explorations using ESSER ARP grant funding because we wanted to ensure that they continue to have school experience over the summer. And the 2 things we're really looking at, our English as a second language teachers have already seen these results. They've already looked at them, knowing what they already know about our students and what is going to be next. One of the things we learned in the fall when we combined these results and our New Jersey SLA results is that we saw real weaknesses in math, content language. So one of our English as a second language learners this year took that on as a goal. She studied it, she put a PowerPoint together, she has shared it with all staff because we know that's the next step for us that we really have to keep an eye on. And that, do you have any questions about access testing before I move on to the rest of my report?
The students are all tested. Who does the testing?
So our English as a second language instructors do the testing. Many parts of this have to be done one-on-one because they're actually speaking into the computer. So that's part of why it happens so early. The window is pretty large for it. It's February through mid-April, I think. We try to get it done February, March time. But it is the English as a second language instructors.
And how do they target these students? Is it that they're coming from a home where English isn't spoken, or because of their performance in the classroom?
No, so every time a student is registered into Oradell Public School, they have to fill out a home language survey. That home language survey will then trigger possibly a conversation with the parent. If the survey results say that the child does primarily speak another language at home, the English as second language instructors, who do get some extra time over the summer to do this work, will have phone conversations and interviews with the parent to see if they are a candidate for the program. If they believe they are a candidate for the program, they will do initial testing then. What I've always said is the biggest concern with it is we're screening 5-year-olds, and 5-year-olds are not the most valid reporters on the planet. Sometimes they get distracted a little more easily. So that's why we often see our numbers in kindergarten be a little bit higher in terms of numbers, and then they immediately start to go down, which is part of instruction and being in school, and I think also part of just kind of knowing the game of testing a little bit as well.
Thank you.
What's a typical day for one of these students like?
Well, they actually have the same exact day as someone else, except the English as a second language instructor will push into their classroom and support them in the classroom for a period of time. I want to say
Okay,
it's
so
90
we have
minutes.
38 students in all the grades, right? From kindergarten to 5th grade? How many English language learners do we have that can pop into a classroom?
Well, we have 2 teachers.
2 teachers?
We have 2 teachers, which is why we work really hard to try to group some of our English language learners together so that the teacher's not trying to go to 5 classrooms at that grade level. They may only be visiting 2 at that grade level.
And they're being helped all year long, right?
Yes, yes.
During the classroom, during the subject that's being discussed, or?
Yes, and those in the upper grades, what those English language learners will do is they'll also assist with materials. So, for example, we have a student who is more new to us from Japan, and we're dealing with content area material then, right? It's harder to find that in a native language sometimes, so they will help us to find those resources as well.
Thanks.
Do the parents ever push back on it? Do we need permission from them?
Could you clarify that?
You said we meet with the parents first. Do
Yes.
any parents ever push back on it, or do we
Yes.
even need their permission to do this during the day?
Yes, we do need their permission for them to be in the ESL program. If they choose to not be in that program, that actually gets coded in our state database next to that child. We are still, though, administering the access to them. They actually would have to do a parent refusal again for testing. So sometimes some of these scores are students that receive no English language instruction, but they are deemed by the state as an English language learner.
And they don't receive it because their parents have refused. So we do
Correct.
have parents that are refusing it.
Correct.
And what's the reason?
Sometimes they just want their child in the classroom, and sometimes they just feel that that's not something their child needs. They just need time.
But they still get tested as a English
Yes.
language learner. Okay. And then you made some comment about attendance was lower. We have to, what were you talking about?
So as I said, that on our New Jersey performance report, we get that percentile, and that percentile then ranks us against all the other schools in the state. And the two areas are, our academic scores are quite high. Our growth scores, how much growth we've shown from one year to the next, is quite high compared to our peers. The two areas that were concerning to me were the results of the ELL testing and our overall attendance percentage.
Okay, so you didn't mean attendance of our
No.
ELL students?
Correct.
Okay, yes, we've talked about the attendance issue
Yes.
before. It's the same issue that we've discussed before, basically. Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, so we're in that time of the year where I believe our parent community thinks the summer is so much longer, and our administrative team. That's okay, I don't need it. Thank you, though, Rami. It's okay, we're good. Where our administrative team is actually fretting that there is only 3 weeks left, and there is oh so much to do. We are completing some final hires, which is typical, especially for instructional aides at this time of year. We want to make sure we've matched students and teachers with the right instructional aides. We then see a domino effect. Our lunch aides often want to become instructional aides, which is wonderful. They already know the community, but guess what happens? We now need lunch aides. So if anyone knows anybody who wants to be a lunch aide, we are hiring. I will put it on our social media feed this week. It's a really great time also in the newsletter, which you have a copy. It is a very draft version. It's so draft that the back article isn't written. But I would like it to go out next week. We always wait, and I think it's really helpful for our community to get to see who our new teacher hires are prior to the start of the school year. So that is there, and there's a very big plug for the Oradell Kids run in it. There's a QR code to send people to run sign up, and also an article that talks about how the Oradell Emerson Rotary, the PTA, and the Oradell Kids Foundation have always worked in partnership with the community and how that has benefited our children. Along with writing a newsletter, one of the things in there is a call for substitute teachers. This is a wonderful time for anyone to become a substitute teacher. There is a certification fee holiday right now. So no one who applies for a certification through the New Jersey Department of Education has to pay a fee until June 2024. So I've been telling even teachers, like if you're even eligible for another cert that you think you're never going to want to use, so you never applied for it, now's the time to do it. Our building is getting there. The NPR has been painted. The gym floor has been sanded. If you've never seen what a fresh gym floor looks like, you really need to go down. It is, Mr. Iapelli keeps talking about it. He's like, it's brand new. We had hot water piping replaced in 3 hallways, shut down a whole bunch of bathrooms at Oradell Public School. We had our meters replaced, which resulted in our staff getting a delayed opening yesterday because there was no water anywhere in the building. A new sink has been installed in the STEAM lab, and a new bottle filler has been installed closer to the kindergarten wing, which is going to make for some very unhappy kindergarten students because they love to trek through this school looking for a bottle filler. And the closest one was all the way down in the NPR or all the way up by Mr. Hagopian's office. So it was a hike. So their teachers are very excited. They may not be quite as excited to see the new one. Our retaining wall project is on the agenda, and the paver project outside is underway. I have to say that that project seems like such a little thing, but it is such a tug at my heart. We have a changing parent community, and we have a lot more dual working households, and we have a lot more grandmas and grandpas that pick up kids. So the thought that we're putting benches there, which wasn't our intention at all, but I think of it as my grandma pickup spot, which my grandma picked me up from school. My mom was always picking up her grandkids, and I have a very special spot for many of the grandparents in our community. One of them at commencement this year stopped me and said, "Can I take a picture? It's my last one." And I said, "Let's go get your granddaughter." And she said, "No, just the two of us." So she must have felt it as well. We continue to also be working on finalizing curriculum. All of our curriculum will be on the September 6th agenda for reapproval. Much of the work being done is about adding the standards that are mandated by law but are secondary in nature. So for example, where does that financial literacy play in the K-2 curriculum? There are a lot of laws in the state of New Jersey, and sometimes they're things we know we're doing, but they might not be documented in our curriculum. For example, fire prevention. We know the fire department's coming every October, but that's not in our curriculum. So those are the pieces that we're adding right now. When the state county comes in and they look at our curriculum and they say, where's the Amistad mandate, where's the Holocaust mandate, where's the fire prevention, how easy is it for them to find, and is it in every grade band that is being addressed? To help with that, several members of the administrative team will be attending a CUSAC information meeting at the end of August. And as for the newsletter, I would like to get it out next week, so if you have anything that you would like me to know, I will send you the final article tomorrow. It's done. My administrative assistant, very good at graphic design, but she is a perfectionist, so. she wanted it
Anything
all
that we feel is missing?
Absolutely. If something is missing in the newsletter, please let me know, because I do have the back page, and I do have some other tweaking that I can do as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Iapelli.
Oh, could I just interject 1 second
Yep.
on Ms. Bozio's report? Under the substitute, are you going to note the important changes we've made in salary? Because I think that is a good catch.
Yes.
With getting maybe some extra help.
If it's not in the article, I will make sure it is in the article. And I am also having an informational meeting for anyone in the community that is interested in being a sub on September 9th at 10 a.m. And that is one of the pieces that I will also review in them. Mrs. Walker is talking about the fact that we have changed on this agenda our substitute payment rate. The first 25 full days, you'll make $125 a day, but starting on day 26 for the remainder of the year, you will make $150 a day, and we hope that this will, this and the fact that we are one of the few districts that actually pays our substitute aides the same thing we pay our substitute teachers, because in a lot of places they don't, and people don't want to ever take the aide job, which is a problem as well.
And I think that's a nice increase from what I've been told about a number of other districts to get that 150.
I have one other hope. I'm really trying to see if I can reach out to some of the local colleges. Subbing's a really great job while you're in college because you can pick your days. I applied to go to a part-time job fair at Ramapo. Unfortunately, I didn't make the cut. They only have X number of nonprofits, and we didn't make it. So I'm on a waiting list. We'll see.
One second. Mr. Walsh?
A suggestion for things that are missing in the ION OPS. I think you should put in that you're looking for substitute teachers and all the other things that you mentioned about substitute teachers. And it's in there? Okay, I'm sorry. I'd have to go back to school to be able to be eligible. What was the other thing we were missing? Lunch aids.
Lunch aids, sorry.
Did I miss that too?
No, I actually did not put lunch aids in there because I was going to go to our social media for lunch aids, but I can actually put that in there as well. The lunch aid need is almost more pressing because lunch starts on September 7th, and while I am known for my lunch aid prowess, I'd prefer not to be in there every day.
Thank you.
Mr. Iapelli?
Just wanted to say, I wanted to thank Paul Cusack, Building and Ground Supervisor, and his staff, how they have been getting through this year. It's remarkable what the school looks like and what it starts to look like, the turnover to come back. The floors, as you start to see almost like a rebirth of what everything was old and looking beat up after a school year, but they really are bringing things back to life. It's wonderful. They've really been working hard. And I've just been continuing, the transition from Mr. Mamora to myself and cleaning up the things that I find, odds and ends that were left open from the end of the last school year and preparing for the next one.
Thank you. Minutes, review of minutes, July 26th. Any questions or comments, please email Mr. Iapelli. We have approval of June 28th and July 12th. Do I have a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of June 28th and July 12th.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Walker. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Cox.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Derry.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Administrative items, Mr. Darian.
Yes, I'd like to introduce administrative items A1 through A6.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Costa.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Derry.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Darian.
Yes, we had a meeting on August 9th. The notes is in your packet. We've talked about these items before. We're just working through the list and checking things off, so we're making progress as was stated earlier this evening. So with that, I'd just like to introduce items B1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions? Call the question.
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Downing.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Wall.
Yes.
Mr. Derry.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Curriculum, Mrs. Walker, you want to take that since Mrs. Neegum's not here? You want to take curriculum since you're on the committee?
Sure. I'd like to present C1 through C2.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions?
I have a question. Is this list longer than usual? I don't remember seeing so many field trips.
You haven't seen it probably since 2019-20 school year because we haven't done the big mass list for the beginning of the year since then.
What do we do at Mawa High School?
Mawa High School is sometimes used for the band when they go and they perform, and the educator listens to their performance and gives them feedback. It's a band festival.
Is Odyssey in Michigan this year? Is that why Michigan State's there?
Correct.
Any other questions?
We're going to New York.
These are just places that they may go. Hopefully we'll go to New York, but these are all places they may or may not go, I'm assuming, right?
Correct, and if someone wants to add a new location, like we knew that sixth grade was possibly considering Camp Mason, so we put it on here, just so it's already approved. If someone brings another location forward, I know our first grade continually has been looking for a field trip that they felt fit with their curriculum. We'll just add it at a later date.
Yes, going back to New York again, hopefully.
Well, there's so many places in Jersey. When we used to go to New York, there probably wasn't that many in Jersey. But that's good.
Any other questions? Call the question?
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta,
Yes.
Mrs. Downey,
Yes.
Mrs. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh,
Yes,
Mr. Darian,
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Mr. Darian, would you take finance since Mr. Griffin's not here?
Sure. I'd like to introduce items D1 through D15.
I'll second that.
Any questions? Mrs. Walker?
Could you explain D7? I'm a little confused there. So we're approving the 10,208?
That's correct. That was a change order. That's like the last payment with the change orders that were already approved. The architect had already signed off on these.
And we have the money.
Yes. These are from the past projects, and we don't pay until the architect goes through. He signs off. The project manager has also looked at it. And when they sign off, they send it to us, and then that's when we release payment.
So that's the punch list. We're done now.
The punch
No.
list is still, no, it's not done.
See, there's
We are not
balance to
done.
finish, 50,000?
Right. And there's some credits that may be applied, so they're
Yeah.
still trying to finalize the punch list. There are still open items.
And we have money for all.
Yes, yes. The money has already been set aside from the prior budgets. So that carries forward
Right,
because the money's still available.
right.
Rita, in our packet, we had, I don't know where it is at the moment, but we had a breakdown on the change order, and it showed, what the impact was. And I think our original budget for the auditorium remodel was 200 and, what was it here, 93,000. And we just went over around 300,000. But considering we budgeted, we thought it was going to be 700 plus. And so we've got lots of surplus. We put it, I think last year, we put a lot back into cap reserve, but we still have some left. I don't know, the specifics of it, but, we paid only
There's never
half of
enough,
what we
Greg. There's
anticipated paying.
There's never enough, though. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
D13, Bergen County Special Services, are they the only ones who are allowed to provide hospital instruction at Newbridge, or are we allowed to send our own teachers?
We've actually never used this. We approve it every single year, but anytime we've had a child who was hospitalized, wherever they were, provided the instruction. So this is almost like a catch-all if need be.
Say that again, wherever they
So
were?
if a child was hospitalized somewhere in the past, that hospital provided the instruction and we paid the hospital because they have people that work within their system. We provided the work. We every year do approve this because if need be, but it's never been something we've needed to do.
And for D15, Mr. Iapelli, this is the whole list that we're getting rid of, the Dell Chromebooks? And what's going on with them? What's happening with them?
They get recycled, they bring them down to the town DPW, where we recycle them, they let them know.
Are they that terrible that nobody could use them?
Yes, because we know that our Chromebooks, we work on a 3-year cycle. So we buy Chromebooks in first grade. The first graders keep them for first, second, and third grade. Their name goes on them. In fourth grade, they get another one. They keep it for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. From there, so we're on the 4th year of a $400 Chromebook. We take the best ones from that, and we keep them in kindergarten, okay? And everything else, we do save some surplus, but some of these are 5 years old now, because they're the kindergarten ones that we gave to kindergarten last year.
We explained, they get them in first grade and they go first, second, and third.
Then they get them in fourth, and they go fourth, fifth, and sixth.
So what happens to ones at the end of third?
Those in sixth grade, so you've been beat up for 3 years. So
Okay.
say we can salvage 125 from the 250 we're getting rid of. Those go to kindergarten, okay?
Right. So, but some are
And
3
then-
years old that we're getting rid of.
Yes.
So there's nobody in the area that could use any of these anywhere? Like, we're just going to dump,
Even
What,
for parent-
200 or
Even
whatever?
to say, we have these
How about
here.
parts?
Can you want to come and take a few and try them? I mean, it seems like such a waste.
Yeah, I mean, and they're not, we're not buying the type of devices that high schools use, okay? These are very entry-level Chromebooks. They are approximately $400, I'm going to say, a Chromebook. When we get 3 years out of them, we are like, yes. I mean, we can hold off on the disposal if you want to.
Are they down there now? Down
No,
there?
no,
So-
no, we would never dispose of anything until it's been board approved.
Okay.
So just to remind everyone, these devices don't have high-resolution monitors or screens. They don't have an operating system. They run the Chrome OS. It's just basically like a tablet that runs a browser. And, after a couple of years of use, its value is not much, so.
There's so
but nobody could
many
use
of
it?
Well, it doesn't have any internal memory, and you only can save the data onto the Google Cloud's, server. So, it's limited in terms of its use. I'm sure someone could use it. They can, play games and stuff on it, but, it's not like it's a laptop, like you get in high school, those
No, I know.
laptops. I could say, it runs Windows, it has enough processing power to run Photoshop, so, it may be 4 years old, but it's still, relevant. But it's a Chromebook, so,
But they used them last year in the classroom, right?
yes,
On, yeah.
sure.
Yes, sorry.
Yes. Romney's our technical person.
Maybe I lied.
I'm Rami, you know me. So what we're getting rid of this year is not the ones that were being used last year. We actually keep them for 4 years. They are in use for 3 years, and then I keep them, all of them. I don't select any. I keep all of them for a 4th year. I use some of them for kindergarten, and then after the 4th year, those are the ones we're disposing of. The ones that were in use last year are they're going to stay in storage for next year.
But some of these were used in kindergarten, you're saying, last year.
Yes, but now kindergarten will use the newer ones that are retired.
But some of these were retired and were being used in kindergarten,
Yes.
basically. So
Yeah.
they were being used this past year in kindergarten.
Yes, some of them, yes, and they've been failing consistently. So the thing about Chromebooks is, in the tech world, they call them the paper plates of laptops. They're really just paper plates. Like, if you can get 4 years out of them, it's a miracle. 3 years is really the ideal lifespan. The 4th year, I keep them because I think, we could use them in kindergarten, we could use them. I'm going to have a cart. We could possibly have a cart this year between the library and the Spanish room. But those are the ones that are being recycled, not the ones that were being used last year, the ones that were being used the year before that I had held on to for a year. Does that make sense? Yes, only in kindergarten, but not all of them. Like, it's just like a small number of them. And I had to replace some of them because typically the battery dies, and when the battery dies, it gets puffy and it gets risky, and you don't want to, you really don't want to deal with that.
Okay.
That's why we have them.
Thank you, Rami.
Yep.
Any other questions?
How much do they cost?
400.
You can come back?
So the ones we bought that we want to dispose of or recycle were $300. The ones for the new ones are the $400 mark that Megan talked about, or the new ones that we just bought beginning of the summer. So it's $300 for those.
So we're talking about using them for 5 years?
3 years,
Hey.
possibly 4.
3 years plus a 4th in storage and
And then
some
you
of them in
use it for the
kindergarten.
kindergarten.
And some of them for kindergarten. Yeah, not all of them, some of them.
So we spend 800,000 and,
800.
I never did the math.
400
It-
times.
Sounds right.
300 times 250?
400 times 200, right?
Well, don't we buy them
We buy them
for
in
each grade every year?
250, yeah. 125 for each first grade and fourth grade.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
I don't feel any better, but thank you.
Any other questions? Call the question?
On the roll. On the roll, Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Delegate report, Mr. Walsh?
I have nothing to report. There's nothing going on except workshop. Phil, how are we at workshop? How many people do we have?
That's what I needed clarification. So right now, it's you.
I'm going to do that under old business because we're going to move on to committee reports right now, okay?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Personnel, Mrs. Walker.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to present F1.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Walsh. Any questions?
I have a
Mrs.
question.
Walker?
Yes. I see on here Jody Bastillo is leaving us, but then she's listed under substitute teacher.
So she's retiring, resigning as her,
As an aide,
right, and then she's just going to sub for
but she's
us.
still going to come back and sub. Okay. Is there a reason why she left as an aide?
She would like to remain a part of our community, which is why she is staying on as a sub. So when she can be here, she can.
Okay.
Any other questions? Call the question?
On the roll, Mrs. Acosta.
Yes.
Mrs. Downey.
Yeah.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes,
Mr. Darian.
Yes.
Mrs. Nichols.
Yes. Policy, Mrs. Norian is not here. We should probably have a policy committee meeting because we kind of left in the middle, right? So we really should probably schedule one. Public relations, Mrs. Acosta.
I have nothing to report.
Open to the public.
Hi, Jen Allen, Wildwood Road. I didn't speak earlier because I was hoping the district goals were a discussion item. So just really curious to know a little bit more what needs assessments are conducted to develop district goals. Are school goals one and the same as the district goals, given we're a one school district? Or are there separate school goals? Is the professional development plan that was voted on and approved A6 aligned, and how, given that the first goal does have a measurement tool, but it really only applies to 4 to 6. I was curious about how goals are measured in the school and set. And also, lovely to see the goal to strengthen or enhance the partnership between home and school, and hoping that there's a parent component for feedback for that as well.
So I'll answer part of it. There are no separate school and district goals because it's one building, it's one school, it's one district goal. And I will let Ms. Bozios discuss how we measure you had the question on the first goal. I don't have them in front of me, but on the first goal, basically.
Well, just normally I'm used to seeing school goals that are SMART goals, specific, measurable, time-bound, realistic, and one goal has a measurement tool, but it's only applicable to 4 to 6th grade. I'd love to see more differentiation. I have a kindergartner and first grader, so wondering how it
Oh,
applies.
yes. Oh, okay, so definitely Ms. Bozios can talk about everything we do in the lower grades to measure growth.
Yeah, so we do have, first of all, when we set the goals, we meet as a school admin team. Okay, so they don't I don't set them with the board up here and then they push down, they actually push up. So we start by looking at all the data we've collected. Most of that data is in Lincoln in the data locker. Just because you have a kindergarten or a first grader doesn't mean there's not data in there. There's DIPL's assessments and their reading levels, writing. So that's where we start, and we look at what is it that we're noticing. So are we noticing that certain groups of learners are not moving as much as some other groups of learners? Okay, the differentiation goal came directly from concerns we have about how the WIN period is being used, and also how our tiered interventions are being rolled out. We feel we've made great strides in Tier 3. We're really concerned about Tier 1 and that basic level of, and I'm speaking to you like you're an educator, because I know you are. So,
Right, and so I am passionate about your core curriculum, Tier 1 curriculum, and I don't see any goals surrounding core curriculum. Like, I would have hoped to have seen a literacy goal or something tied to whatever your new math curriculum is going to be. Look forward to knowing
and
what that
would
is.
very likely come when those new standards come out from the state.
Sure. I
So-
mean, it sort of pains me as a parent, not just an educator, that we're waiting for the state goals when we know what brain research and science says.
Absolutely, and we've heard you, and we've made some strides there. We have bought more decodable readers for our kindergarten classrooms. As I've shared previously, we have brought foundations to second grade, and we are training our third grade teachers to roll it out in third grade
Great.
the next year. So it's not going to happen overnight.
Certainly. I would just
Yeah.
think goals would be aligned to that if
Yes.
that's where your professional development is going to be for teachers.
There's a larger action plan that goes in, and all of these things, they do seem so qualitative and not quantitative, and I understand that. So much of the action plan is, did this happen? Did we see it? So some of the data we collect is walkthrough data for the creativity, the engagement one. So that's something that the board has had in past goal update presentations.
Sure.
The
So like, do
parent
you
one-
internally then have some baseline data and measurement tool? They're just not shared publicly?
With the engagement one, what we did last year is we collected data in September and October on the walkthroughs, put it forward, and then looked at the data moving forward that way. So we kind of had the gut instinct first. We collected the baseline data, which is a little backwards. Yes, we would have preferred to collect the baseline data. We just.
So
it
then
was-
how do you share then with the public, with the families, where that
typically-
goal is?
Yeah, typically during board presentations. So if you go on on the district website, right? So if you went under board presentations, you'll see that I updated 3 times last year on our board goals, and I will do that again this year, which is a little more detailed. With regards to the parent goal, we also set goals as a board, and we will be doing a survey. And so that will be the first data collection for how can we better communicate with parents, like what is the means that works best.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to old and new business. I was going to ask about the convention. I wanted to know, did anybody make reservations with Mr. Marmora before he left? Who did? You did?
I-
Mr. Darian did?
I did, yeah.
Mr. Walsh did? Anybody else?
I don't know about reservations.
They told him
were
they were
not-
going.
Were not booked, but they did say
Okay.
they were going. I know, we are registered with school boards. We just need to finalize the hotel.
No.
That's going to be a problem at this point.
That's
He
not what they
definitely did
said.
not set a reservation anywhere?
Definitely did not set a reservation. But I was talking with school boards today, and they said, we're okay.
Mr. Walsh?
Now, first, the school board members can go, but there's a total, we're going as a group, right?
Right, it's $550 a person, or $2,200 for up to 25 people.
So we're better off spending the 22,
Correct. Than as a
because
person.
usually more than, what'd you say, 3 people?
Well, right now, it's
4 people?
yourself, Mrs. Walker, Mrs. Norian, Mr. Darian, Mrs. Bozios.
Okay.
Mrs. Bozios and myself.
Peter, I just got confirmation today from NJSBA regarding the,
Right, that we're registered,
yeah.
yes. No, that's tomorrow.
So where do you want to stay? Don't you stay in a certain place always that you like?
We usually stay, well,
Is that good? Right. You need anything else from anybody, Mr. Iapelli, for that?
Yes, just, I know Mrs. Walker had said she's going down one night and then leaving the next day. That's what I need to know. Are we
she
doing
usually does that.
one night and leave, or is it 2 nights?
Do you know yet when you're going? You want to just email Mr. Iapelli tonight?
I'm going every night.
Okay, so
How
you could
about
be
you? Do you
2
have-
nights?
The entire time, 2
Same
nights.
for
I
Mr.
think it's
Darian.
more, right?
Whatever.
2 nights?
What is it, Monday, Tuesday, and this class is Wednesday?
Yeah, we usually drive down Monday morning, but some people, like to drive down Sunday night.
I used to drive down Sunday night, yeah.
But it starts Monday, goes through Thursday. And Thursday, everyone hightails it out of there.
Thursday is the last day?
Yeah.
So it's 3 days of classes?
I think they offer on Friday mornings, they offer, training.
Friday?
Is it over? They don't have,
Do we have a booklet? Did we get
don't?
anything?
okay. So in the past, I guess they had, like the legal training that you would have to take. They're not doing that.
Phil,
It's-
can you get a list of all the classes?
It's,
It'll come out. It's probably out already online.
they have an app. Oh, yeah, we'll get a list.
Yeah, it's out. All right, anything
Yes.
else for the convention that we need to talk about right now? No. Any other old or new business?
Crap. I can't find it. I was just, no, it's not worth mentioning. I don't have it. It's on my phone somewhere. It's, I saved some stuff because I want to talk about it, like, one of the things was budgeting. Our funds that we're getting from the state has increased year over year, whereas some of the surrounding school districts have had some declines in funding. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but yeah, I mean, it's not a lot. We don't get a ton of money from the state. We're basically self-funded, but the small amount we do get is increasing. So that's good because other communities around us, I think New Milford was one. I don't know. Like I said, it's been a while. I have it forwarded to myself, but I don't have it readily available. So
Any other old or new business? Mrs. Walker?
Oh, sorry, thank you. In the newspaper about Patterson School District and the results of their tests, the state tests this past year. And it said, in math, only 11.3% of the kids passed the math test, and statewide, 55% passed. Now, I think we can really applaud, and I know we were not as happy as we would have liked to have been with our test results in math, but we were still so superior. So, and then in ELA, Patterson, 38.5% passed, and statewide, 80.5% passed. So it's mind-boggling when you think, I know
Gotta feel-
Patterson is having real issues. And also, the other thing was, they were saying that most were having extremely low percentage of kids meeting the reading proficiency levels, but 95% were being promoted. 'Cause I
Where
guess,
did you get
what do
that
you
from,
do?
Rita?
What do you do with all those kids?
Say a prayer for them.
It's just, I found it to be very interesting, because we're only, 12 miles away. That's all. Now everybody's depressed.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker.
I did find what I was looking
You have
for.
to join me then.
So New Milford receives $4 million next year from the state. That's down 13% year over year. Some of the other districts Northern Highlands are up 11%, Northern Valley Regional 15%, Riverdale 17%, Rivervale 15, up 15, Rochelle Park up 12. We're up 21%, but we only get 956,000. So 21% of what is what really matters. Paramus is up 16%, Park Ridge 15% from last year.
Any other old or new business? Anyone need to go into a closed session for any reason?
Do we need a closed session?
I do not. Anyone want to make a motion?
I
make
move
a
that we
motion.
close the meeting.
I think Mrs. Walker beat you.
I make a motion that we call the meeting to a close.
You
I'll
could
second it.
second at 8:24.